Anyway, who wants drama? So, you might have heard that Bad Empanada recently made a video. That's me. I speak in the third person because I'm a fucking loser. So, he recently made a video about how economics is bad and all economists deserve punishment. And someone didn't take that very kindly. A guy whose channel is called Unlearning Economics didn't take it very well, because apparently he doesn't actually want to unlearn economics. Apparently he wants to reaffirm mainstream neoclassical economics, because he made a video debunking me, and basically every single comment on it is negative. And I did not send people to this video, so it's not exactly my fault that it's negative. But I mean, it's a stream reaction video. So I understand how this shit goes, because I also do stream reaction videos. The way it goes is that you like do a half-assed commentary on someone else's video where you're half paying attention. Mostly you do it because some dipshit or multiple dipshits in your chat keep badgering you to do it for months on end, but most streamers are too pussy to just instantly ban them like I do. So that results in this, which is him basically desperately trying to find reasons to disagree with me when he actually agrees with everything that I'm saying. Probably because he just doesn't like me because he's like a friend of like Vorsh, Socialism Done Left, like all of the worst people you could ever imagine. And also I shit on Matthew Darling, a neoliberal think tank employee in the video, who Unlearning Economics is at least acquaintances with. I don't know if they're friends, but they did a podcast together once, and they were like all buddy agreeing on everything. So that's basically how his mentality was coming into this video. It's like, okay, it's Bad Empanada. I have to disagree with him because he shits on my friend in this video, and he also shits on other people who I am on good terms with. So I have to find some way to disagree with. Basically, his channel is called Unlearning Economics. It's dedicated towards basically the idea that mainstream economics is flawed, uncritical, stupid, blah blah blah. And he comes into this video that basically is saying that with clear examples, desperately trying to find a way to disagree with that. I mean, you want to see just how dumb it is. There's one part, I'm obviously not going to watch the whole thing. It's 33 minutes long, and my attention span is that of a child watching TikToks of Skibidi Toilet in one quarter, that game where you run in the trains in the other quarter, videos of Baby Gronk rizzing in this quarter, and then in the other quarter, I don't know, I guess it's probably like Fortnite footage. So I'm obviously not going to watch a 33-minute long video. Family Guy clips, that's the one. Good point. Oh, this one is really funny. This I think just encapsulates the incredible dumbness of this attempt to respond. So this is the part in the video where I explain how the $1.9 a day poverty line was initially created, and this is his response to it. Services are priced equivalently across countries. Once converted into a common currency, they found that in 6 of these very poor countries, the value of the national poverty line was about $1 per day per person, and this formed the basis for the first $1 a day international poverty line. The World Bank later updated this poverty line to $1.25 per day, and then again to the $1.9 per day that we see in our graphs here. Since the specific graphs we're looking at were made, it was also updated yet again in 2022 to $2.15 per day. That they keep updating it, even though it's already adjusted for inflation, should maybe make us a bit suspicious of its usefulness. So this global poverty line was created by looking at the poverty lines of a small number of the world's poorest.
Wait, why would that make you suspicious, aren't they? They're continuing to update it for inflation, right?
Okay,
that's
firstly, you're an economist. You're an economist. You don't need this explained to you. Why do I have to explain this to you? I figured it would be self-evident for like the 12-year-old Skibidi toilet addicts who watch my channel, but for you it should be completely obvious. Okay, so if you purport to have already adjusted something for inflation, right? It's adjusted for inflation already. That means that this supposed $1.9 a day poverty line, which has supposedly been adjusted for inflation, and which has then been extrapolated to supposedly adjust for inflation all the way back to 1820, should be like irrespective of time and place. It should be as accurate in the time and place where it was created as it is, 200 years in the past, assuming that it is what they purport it to be, which is a way to adjust for inflation over time. So the fact that they have to change it to adjust for prices in the present, because apparently the previous measure, which was already adjusted for inflation, was no longer adequate, it's indicative that there's something, fucked up with their calculations. If they're adjusting it for inflation, but supposedly it was already adjusted for inflation, then, you're the economist. You can explain to me what's going on there, but it doesn't really reflect well on the people who made the metric, does it? I don't know why you need that explained to you. But the next part is really, really what I was getting at with just showing how desperate he is to find something wrong.
More right than wrong. I guess it's just like it just comes across as a bit extreme to be like, oh, this this thing that's going up is good, and this thing that's bad is going down. And then, I mean, he hasn't answered the question, and I'll give him a chance.
What's the question? Is there a question?
Not to interrupt too often, but he hasn't answered the question. Like, does he think that poverty is bad? I don't know.
What? That's the part that I was getting at. Does he think that poverty is bad? What in the hell are you saying? What? You think the World Bank international poverty line is a load of shit? So you like poverty then? Is that it? By the way, this guy has an entire video where he basically explains very similar things to what I explained in this video. So Unlearning Economics debunks Unlearning Economics. He has this clip in his video, which he cites approvingly.
I suspect that Steven Pinker's grasp of all this is pretty shaky. There was an interview where Mehdi Hasan challenged Pinker on his understanding of the numbers, and Pinker seemed under-equipped to address the points.
Well, let's take global poverty. Yeah. You have a chapter in the book on prosperity. You want to make the case that the world is more prosperous and less poor than ever before, and you point to data showing the number of people living on the extreme poverty line, as defined by the World Bank today at $1.90 a day, is down from 2 billion in 1990 to 700 million in 2015. The world is becoming middle class, you say. But surely you know, I know you know, because you're a very clever, well-qualified guy, that there are numerous studies and a number of scholars who dispute that poverty measure as arbitrary, as inaccurate, that in reality, to quote from a recent academic paper by an anthropologist at the LSE, quote, around 4 billion people remain in poverty today, around 2 billion remain hungry, more than ever before in history.
That completely irrelevant to which way the numbers have gone. Of course, the definition of extreme poverty is going to be arbitrary. If you make it higher, then more people will be in poverty. Make it lower, fewer people.
Exactly.
But no matter what cutoff you set, the direction is downward.
That's not true. That's not, if you look at the work done by Jason Hickel at the LSE, if you take a poverty line of $5, 1 billion people have been added to the number of people on that poverty measure since 1981. The trend shows the exact opposite when you move it to $5 a day.
In terms of the proportion of people in poverty by that criteria?
No, the sheer number of people. Yes, 1 billion people have been added to the poverty total since 1981.
Yes, but billions of people have been added to the world as a whole. What's relevant is the proportion.
But you also use absolute numbers in your book. You say it's gone down from 2 billion to 700.
Well, I note that by at least the most widely accepted definition of extreme poverty, it's interesting that the absolute numbers have declined as well. But the main point is the proportion, because...
And then later in this video, he gets into like what he thinks are better poverty lines, one of which is the same 740 poverty line that I cited.
But this part of the narrative falls apart with higher poverty lines, since at $7.40 a day, the absolute number of people in poverty has actually gone up.
So this is a cloud network sort of thing, where someone who previously literally made a video making similar arguments to the video that they purport to be debunking has to attack the video based on who made it. Classic example. This is probably the best example this I've ever seen, to be honest. There is another part, which is extremely funny, where he claims the idea that the World Bank is an instrument of Western foreign policy is a conspiracy theory, which is incredible. So I think this really comes from the fact that this guy very likely got into economics and then found it to be bullshit after getting into it, rather than being politicized at all beforehand. So he does not understand politics, doesn't understand the very concept that people might not earnestly hold their beliefs, that a huge institution like the World Bank might not earnestly believe that neoliberal shock treatment on every country in the world is the greatest thing possible to do. And they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart, but they're doing it because they are an instrument of the powerful, which is used by them to impose what the powerful want on those without power. He literally can't conceive of that. For him, like, people who have bad economics are all just honest, and they're not trying to push their own interests on others dishonestly. They're just like people who came to the wrong conclusion or something. So for him, it's a conspiracy theory, the objective fact that the World Bank is an instrument of US foreign policy.
Would the World Bank do this? What might have motivated them to create and then
so he's a fan of Vorsh, the pedophile. You might want to look into that, my friend, because Vorsh showed his pedophilia pornography collection on stream, his cheese pizza collection, as we say it, to not get demonetized. So it's kind of problematic to be friendly with someone like that.
Pervasively spread this clearly bogus global poverty line. I'm leaving this bit for last so that no one can just lazily accuse me of ad hominem. but they'll do it anyway. It's because the World Bank is hardly some politically neutral institution. Despite the world part of its name, it was created by the Western Bloc in 1944 to serve their own interests, and has duly done so ever since. Since the 1970s and 1980s, one of the pinnacles of said interests has been the spreading of so-called structural adjustments, where predatory loans from the bank to desperate or coerced target nations come with the condition that they fundamentally change the very structure of their economies and their laws that regulate it, to open it up, as the euphemism usually goes. The data on the effects of this has since shown that such structural adjustments very suspiciously result in a substantial redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor, and from poor countries to rich countries.
Now, you might have noticed that I just said something wrong, a slight error. But the thing is, if your IQ is above about 60, your brain automatically corrects that and you don't notice it. So it's kind of a filter for people who are very dumb, but they can't help it. I don't blame them.
Countries. Surely it's all just a coincidence though. So the World Bank thus has a vested interest in spreading this idea that such policies have actually been massively successful, hence their extreme poverty metric and all of the graphs that result from it. In summary, everyone who cites the $1.9 a day international poverty line should parachute into a random country with nothing more than $1.90 a day to spend and put their beliefs into practice. That'd be the best reality TV show ever. Now let's move on to something else.
Okay, so I think he was on relatively strong footing with the actual critique of the data, because it's so flawed. But this link to structural adjustment programs needs a bit more, right? I mean,
how why does the World Bank exist? What is it for? Do you think it's just there because the countries that created it wanted to provide loans to their formerly colonized subjects out of the goodness of their heart? Are you seriously that fucking naive?
Where's the actual link? He goes, oh, that's a coincidence. Like, this is like how conspiracy theorists.
Where's the actual link? It's the World Bank. That's what the World Bank does. That's what the World Bank exists to justify, to do. To justify / force predatory loans tied to crippling economic reforms onto vulnerable countries. That's why it exists as an institution. That's literally its purpose. It and the IMF were created for that purpose post-World War II as an instrument of American foreign policy. And obviously they're still using that exact same way.
Reason, right? It's like, oh, look at that. Maybe they want their structural adjustment programs. And I think the crucial thing that ignores is that the World Bank and IMF, they kind of moved away from their structural adjustment programs after they failed, right?
No, they didn't. They factually did not. They're doing it right now. Example, IMF loan to Ukraine 8 years ago, immediately after Euromaidan. Massive IMF loan to Ukraine with structural adjustment terms tied to it. Current IMF loan to Argentina, there's literally a scorecard that the IMF beholds Argentina to. And among the things in that scorecard are progress on labor reforms. We all know what that means, right? Things like progress on labor reforms, on flexibilization of the labor market, of removing of tariffs. IMF loans still come with the exact same conditions that they always have. I have no fucking idea where you got this from. They're not in the past. Argentina's living it right fucking now. What are you talking about? Let me see if I can find the page about the scorecard. I saw it years ago. I don't know if it's still up. But the IMF literally had a part on their website, like a scorecard for Argentina and its compliance with the conditions of the loan. Here. This is from the IMF website. Last month, in June, they completed their 8th revision of their agreement with the Argentine government for their $58 billion loan that they gave to the government in 2016. Oh no, this is a further loan of $800 million on top of the $28 billion. So, yeah. Sorry, $41 billion. I thought it was 58. I'm a bit off there, but I mean, it's still a lot. Monetary and exchange rate policy must evolve. To support the transition to a new monetary regime, capital flows management measures should be gradually lifted. Exchange policy should become flexible to reflect the economic fundamentals. Greater attention to micro-level reforms to improve competitiveness, labor market flexibility, and the predictability of the investment regulatory framework. These are all structural adjustments, dude. This is 2024. These are the conditions of the loan. This is a report from the IMF from less than a month, 21-ish days ago.
I'm consuming.
Straight up outlining the conditions that they put on Argentina for this loan, which come with structural adjustments. So you are plainly wrong. I do not understand where you possibly got this from. I think you live in an economist bubble where you think that just because they stop using the term structural adjustment so openly, it doesn't mean they're still doing it. Perhaps you should actually look at the terms of the loans they give out. It's always like this. And yeah, this is the IMF, obviously, not the World Bank, but the IMF and the World Bank are practically one and the same. The World Bank does a lot less work in terms of loans like this than the IMF tends to do, but they are both part of the same Bretton Woods institutional framework, and he knows this very well.
Historians of China have said about how it's a...
Okay, I don't think you had a problem with the part about the Madison Project. Let's fast forward then. The rest of the video is spent him basically defending his friend, Matt Darling, who is a neoliberal think tank employee. He's not really an economist. He's more just a guy with like an economics degree who learned enough from it to manipulate dumb people with statistics. And he tried to defend this guy who clearly lied. And he basically seemed to just be operating on vibes. Like the vibe, like he doesn't like that I accuse the guy of lying. Now, I'm not going to go over it in depth again because I already went over it in the video that he's watching. But basically what Matt Darling did is he went to this website that you see this graph.
It's like the whole data set, right?
And he went to the right side here and you see those checkboxes? He ticked them all off to show the entire data set together rather than dividing it through the bottom 50%. And then he posted that as like an example of how he's right that wages in the US haven't stagnated. And I said, he's lying. That's obviously just a plainly obvious attempt to lie. He went there and removed some of the pertinent ways of dividing the graph from the display to then post it displayed in a certain way that was suited his argument. So he's obviously lying by omission very deliberately. And this guy was like, are you calling him a liar? Oh, that's a bit much. That's oof. I don't know if that's a British thing, it's an economist thing, or it's just like a clout network thing.
I feel like that's what we're in danger of doing here, because you could almost make a similar video that just argued from the other side and was like, oh well, look, they're lying because they're.
Could you? Do you really believe that? Because if so, your entire channel should just be deleted because you don't actually believe what it's about. Sorry, you don't actually seem to believe that economics needs to be unlearned at all. You seem to just believe in mainstream economics all of a sudden when it's convenient to you. Because the data shows a certain thing, data that is not clearly presented in a manipulative way by someone who went and turned off a bunch of ways of displaying it intentionally to manipulate their audience, which is what happened here.
They're not using all the sources of income, they're only using hourly wages, they're missing out healthcare, they're not acknowledging that actually, there has been progress in poverty and other outcomes. They're not acknowledging that GDP has...
Has there? By what measure? Because you yourself said in this video that by the $7.40 a day measure, it actually hasn't gone down, not in absolute, nor in percentage terms.
Clearly gone up since the start of the Industrial Revolution, and we're in a historically unprecedented...
GDP has clearly gone up, and so what? Your point?
...unprecedented situation. You know what I mean? You can weave that narrative. So again, I think most of the details of this video are good, but he does what I thought he would do, which is basically try and weave an extreme and kind of almost conspiratorial narrative out of it.
I clearly demonstrated that this guy lied with clear evidence that he did. The idea that it's a conspiracy that the World Bank and IMF exist to push structural adjustments on poor countries is fucking insane. Absolutely incredible. I would love for you to hop onto this stream and explain that one to us. I would absolutely love to just cite a billion examples at you rapid fire and see how you possibly deal with those. So basically two things here. Main one is clout network bullshit. She's friends with socialism done left, and I shit on his friend in this video. So he has to attack me. Two, he's an economist and he takes the title literally. And if you have a channel called Unlearning Economics, I would say that you should perhaps understand that when I say, economists, I mean most of the mainstream ones. I didn't particularly have you in mind, but perhaps I should have. And that is kind of weird because pretty much all of these comments are from his own viewers, and they're all negative. And I didn't send anyone to this video. I did comment on it, like what I just said. You can't just accuse someone of lying when they intentionally uncheck boxes on a graph to hide that the opposite of their argument is true. Yes, I can. Yeah, because I can. Like literally every single comment is shitting on... No, not shitting on him. But yeah, they're not very happy with him. Not very happy with the video. A lot of this is like just, I'm not satisfied with your poor handling of this response. Dude, what? You're talking to him like you want to speak to his fucking manager, man. Just stop watching the fucking video. I'm not satisfied with your poor handling of this response. Who cares? Calm down. But yeah, I can't see a single positive comment. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that.